Start our meeting. It's Monday, December the 16th. This is the Hartland Selectboard meeting. Our first order of business this evening are the minutes from the December 2nd meeting. We both have a regular set of meetings and also an executive session meetings. I would entertain a motion to accept those.
I'll make the motion to accept the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Jim. A second? Second. Thank you, Clyde. Any discussion? I'm good. I'm on. Tracy, you're good? Sure. Seems in order. Tom, you're set?
All set.
Okay, thank you. I meant to just make a statement. Tom is joining us remotely tonight. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. The next item are the accounts payable or the warrants approved today. Again, I need a motion to accept them. So moved. Thanks, Clyde. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jim. Jim, any comments?
Two questions / comments.
Yep.
Liquid dust control. Still buying it?
We are.
Is that normal?
We keep some at the garage. Yeah.
By the time that bill hit us, it probably had been used.
Right.
So, because we were in a drought right until 2 weeks ago.
Until it started snowing.
Right. So,
and in fact, I wish there was some dust control.
Yeah, it's still, yeah.
The roads now.
Yeah, right now it's pretty sandy out there. Yeah.
Okay, Jimmy, you have something?
The other one was around the whole property.
Yes. So that is what the voters approved at town meeting last year in 2024. We got an accounting from Valley Land Trust. That check will go out in January.
So we met to, I think, when they came and kind of went through their spiel, and we discussed it, we agreed to put the article on the, up to the town meeting, right? Yep. But I believe at that time we had a conversation amongst the board to say, when it comes time to do this, right before we write a check and get involved in this, we want to see the contract. We don't want to understand the town's responsibilities long term. So is that process happening?
So I have from Peg Marins at Upper Valley Land Trust, the $100,000 that the town is using is for the purchase of the property.
Right.
So there's no contract to speak of at this point.
But I think we need to have some, and Tom, I think you were vocal on this as well. I think we have to have some understanding about what our responsibilities are long term to make sure we agree with those responsibilities before we hand over the money. So there may be some negotiation that goes on.
There was language used that was very vague. They're not pegged, but when I was here,
maybe a non-issue. Maybe a very clean transition, right? But unless we understand it, we shouldn't be paying the money until we all understand.
So I guess just for clarity,
they had suggested that there would be ongoing maintenance to maintain the property, and that in some cases they look to the town to contribute toward that ongoing maintenance.
Right.
And I think we wanted.
And I think it's also we need some level of control over, what the uses are for the property, right? Especially, are we going to pay to maintain it? Is it going to be transferred to us? Right, that was another open question. And then what are the legitimate uses that we're agreeing to?
I think the other issue was the 7 acres and whether they were going to sell it to the town, whether it was going to be leased, but they were going to come back and talk to us about that. Because they sort of held that out there that it could be something that could be a town use. And I think that it's unclear whether or not that 7 acres we would have to purchase it at, say, market rate, or whether there would be some kind of negotiation on that. And that's
An example of what we threw out at the time was if we should move the fire department across the street or the town garage across the street, if the community housing sort of fell through, could that happen? Okay. So,
right.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, so there's some discussion, some learning that has to happen, and then probably some letter of understanding.
Yeah, so again, this check is still in the town, so we can get that taken care of before that goes out.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I guess I would say we amend the orders to withhold that check until we have the paperwork kind of clearly understood.
There was an article that, can we amend the article that was actually passed?
No, we can't do that, but I think we've got to, before we release the funds, we need to make sure we dotted the i's and crossed the t's. Right. I think it's up to us to release.
Yeah, do we need a motion, or do we just basically say, before we mail that check, let's just go to them and say,
I mean, I was taking notes there. I can follow up at the next meeting, which will be before the check can go in the mail, with the answers to those questions.
So it'd be a little backtracking, and it's probably around this time last year that we had this discussion.
Okay.
You may just want to watch it.
Yep.
It should be clear on the agenda that the folks, Rob and other folks, came to that. So.
Okay, I'll check those in.
The Nimerick software and support fee is $5,500. Which refresh me with what software we actually use.
So Nimerick is the accounting software. It's how we do payroll, and it's the finance office uses the most kind of modules within Nimerick.
Right. Do the listers use it at all?
The listers use portions of it, yes.
Okay.
Different modules.
Okay.
And the clerk uses part of it.
Right.
Too. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So,
but because it mostly goes, the finance office uses the most of the modules, the payment comes out of their budget.
you're very generous, Martin. Thank you. Okay.
What tree did they take down?
What tree did they take down?
Chippers.
Chippers. They took down the trees on Bowers
Okay.
that were by the power lines.
Yeah.
And then a big dead one on the corner of the Quechee Road in Bischoff. There.
So it was more than one.
There was more than one. Yes, it said tree. I did notice it said tree.
I was gonna say that was the most expensive tree.
It was multiple trees.
Okay.
Would be remiss not to bring to the public's attention item on page 6. We just paid another $10,360 for the legal fees for the Seminole. John, what's the total fees that we've paid now?
To date, we have paid $22,159.25. $22,159 in legal fees.
Thank you. Any other questions or with the warrants?
So I didn't see anything on here for annual gift to the employees.
That's correct. We have not done that.
Okay.
What is it? There is an intention.
There is absolutely an intention. Yes, so that'll be in the next, in January. Depends when we get that bill.
Okay. Chris, are you good with this?
Yep.
Yep.
Jim, any more questions? Clyde? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Tom? Good?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? We do have an executive session, which is on voting on its own.
Yes. And can you remind me what the executive session?
HR related items that we're going to dive into. Okay. Public comments. Folks did not have a chance to see the Valley News article today on Tom White. I thought it was done very well, and it's online if people want to see it. But he was on select board for 30 years, and I thought the article was really good. I saw that Cadillac of his driving throughout town, and when I became chair, I think he called me 3 times a week.
The first time I met him, I was walking my dog, and he stopped the Cadillac and said, "You don't want to go that way. There's a bear there." Okay. Nice to meet you.
Okay. Other public comments? Grace, nothing out there? Okay.
Someone raises their hand.
Okay. Okay, moving on to old business. The first item is the Quechee Road. We've labeled it Quechee Road options. At the last meeting, we had Scott Williams from Pathways Engineering. And what we want to do tonight is be clear if we're going after anything on the town meeting warrants, such as a warrant, such as a bond or potentially a loan, and also just how we can get the project started. We heard some suggestions for ditching and culvert work. That there's, even if we started small with that would contribute ultimately to the project.
I think I also heard, if I'm not mistaken, that for the sections that are being done, that would be part of that project. You wouldn't necessarily need to do that separately before you start the project. But there may be some that we do independently for the sections that we're not going to do in the first phase.
Okay. Yeah, and I think ultimately, whatever direction, and that's what we're talking about tonight, is the direction, not necessarily do we start at Gilson or Webster, but how do we proceed? John, you've had some thoughts. Do you want to share them?
Right. So it sounds like, we priced out what, we talked to the bond bank and got options for different bonds. So $3 and $4 million bonds for 15 and 20 years for both. The other options that exist out there are doing some of the short-term work sooner and not pursuing a bond. I think, in all things considered, if we were to look at a bond this year, it would go on would be voted at town meeting. Construction would potentially start not until summer of 2026. So we would take out the bond in the fall to do some of the legwork and the engineering work that's necessary. It's a significant impact to the budget, though. The $3 or $4 million bond.
So just what's the annual?
The annual payment was $280,000, I believe.
Per year for 3?
That was the $4 million bond.
So 2.
Based on the information that Scott provided, the $3 million was not really, we got those numbers, but wouldn't have captured everything that needed to be done. The $3 million.
Right. Neither one. All right. So these are 10-year bonds?
That was a 20-year bond.
That was a 20.
Correct, for 4 million.
At 280.
Yeah. 280, I think there was a interest payment of like 15 on there as well. I don't have those.
Yeah.
That,
The first year was a $53,000
yeah.
interest only. First.
So in fiscal year 26, 53K.
And then starting in 27, it would be like a $15,000 interest payment and a $280,000 principal payment. It's a significant budget hit.
Exclamation point.
Right.
Yeah. Trace and Clyde, what kind of thoughts? You know, we've been discussing this for a few meetings now, and
Well, it's definitely outside of our ability to pay. I mean, their taxes have gone up so high in our community. I can understand why we'd want to do it over 20 years. I get that, but it's going to ultimately be up for the vote. And so I'm assuming that it's very important in how we present it. They'll have to be, you know, the engineering department would probably have to be here.
So alternatively, there are other options. And, you know, I think recognizing the fact that something has to be done on the Quechee Road, you know, we can't continue to turn it to turn a blind eye to it. We have, for example, you know, at some point FEMA is going to pay us for the damage that we sustained in the summer 2023 floods. It's a $130,000 payment. We could use that money to potentially hire a contractor to do some of those, like kind of that legwork, the drainage work that Scott discussed at the last meeting. Cross culverts, ditching, things along those lines, which would push this discussion out a year at a minimum and buy us a little more time.
And what does that get?
What it gets us is it would stop the road from deteriorating further. It also recognizing the fact that next summer we're also going to do some of that, like the hot patch that seems to be holding up fairly well at this point, where they did it last summer, and kind of the routine road maintenance that maybe was not getting done regularly.
So I would suggest that those are all good things to do on the section 1 and 2s.
Right.
But on the 3s and 4s, you might as well do it when you're doing the road project, because you're going to be ripping up everything down to 2 feet.
No, again, I agree with you. I would hate to sort of rip up something that we then put an overlay that's going to fail, but I'd rather not get into the particulars of what we do.
Right. I mean, the engineers will figure that out when the project goes to bid.
Yeah. So go ahead, Tom.
So I've been thinking about this, and I think everyone suffered through last year, and we're now paying this year. That I think what my
Tom, you're cutting it out.
At town meeting do about it. It's been going in and out the whole time, so because I'm having the same problem on your end.
Any ideas?
Hotel Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it working?
Yeah, Tom, so maybe you could try to restate that quickly. We can hear you at the moment.
So my thought was to have an article.
We're so close.
And say $100,000 in the ditching and the culvert work, and that with that article, it would then provide an opportunity for having a townwide discussion about how we're going to proceed. When going over the video from the last meeting, it seems as though that the consultant was strongly recommending the road by trying to fix our ditching, fix our culverts and the like. I also think that our town highway crew have to go out to bid to have someone do. I am concerned that if we decide to go out for a bond now and it gets defeated, that it's going to be difficult for us to introduce another bond at another time. So hopefully the legislature is going to do some things this year to help us with our property taxes. But I just think right now the timing for not great, and it probably would be defeated.
Tom, let me try to paraphrase what I think you said, because there was some breakup. I'm hearing you suggest that rather than put a article for a bond on town meeting, we actually put an article to borrow a small sum of money, 100,000 or 150,000, whatever we'll have to work that out, obviously. And then we focus on the sections of the road for both the culverts and the ditching that would be part of the larger fix anyway, and that we subcontract that work out, that we don't use our own crew, but we subcontract it. And I would add to that in re-listening to Scott, he basically reminded us that it would be not worth our time to start doing overlay for payment on any of the sections right now, because it would just be, we have evidence that overlay is only going to last 2 seasons or 3 seasons, especially in the bad areas. So did I capture what you were saying as far as the article and increasing public awareness by doing that? Whoops.
Yeah, so this is pretty frustrating for me because I'm hearing about every third word.
Tom, an option is, do you want to call and I'll put you on the speakerphone?
Sure, whatever you would like to do. I also think that the town has never bonded before, and I think we just need to do a lot of education to how we're presenting this and all. I mean, the road has to be repaired. So
we have bonded before. We bonded for 3 corners.
Right.
Okay, that's.
So we're carrying that right now for the next. Were those a 30-year bond? No, 20. That was a 20-year bond. So we had 18 to go. So we have 18 more years on the Quechee Road bond, and the payment on that, on the 3 corners, and the payment on that is.
One other thing I wanted to mention too is I'm not suggesting that we're gonna. I think one of the things we need to decide is whether or not we want to borrow the money to do my suggestion, or whether we just want to have a slight increase in our property taxes and not take on any additional debt. But I think the worded in such a way that could be decided by them.
So I'll just chime in. We have the money. So we have the incoming FEMA payment at some point. We could also spend from the highway funds, of which there's a balance of $440,000. So we wouldn't necessarily have to borrow, to Tom's point there, to incur more debt. We have balances available to us to do that work, if that's the path we want to go.
Right. But I think the question is, well, the reality is, you're going to need a bond someday, right? Either we explain the project this year and ask for the money next year, or we explain it and ask for this year.
Yeah.
And we need a starting point. You know, we spend 3 million or we spend 4 million and we get as much of the bed sections done as possible.
I nicely stated, because I think those are the two options that we're really talking about tonight. My feeling is that with the another rise in the property education tax this year, that should we even put a bond out there, I would. The likelihood of it passing, I think, is pretty slim at this point.
That could be true.
Yeah.
But it gives you the opportunity to explain it, and you can come back the next year and do it again.
And so my option would be to do that, to basically use the town meeting to say, here's our starting strategy. This is coming, and would be likely to be presenting it the following year.
But I would caution that I don't think we should be doing ditching work and drainage work on the sections that we're going to tear up and go down 2 feet. We ought to be, preserving the good sections.
Yeah.
Because when they bring that equipment in, they're going to be driving over those ditches.
I agree that we don't want to do things that's going to get damaged or have to get redone. I'd have to double check the recording with Scott. I'm under the.
I think he agreed that was the right thing.
I was under the impression that work was not included in that $4.3 million price tag.
But I think he clarified that it was.
Okay.
During that discussion.
Okay.
I think you're right, Jim.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying repair the spots that are not heavily damaged?
Make sure that the 1s and 2s stay 1s and 2s by making sure the drainage and culverts are good. And when the 3s and 4s have to be done, the whole thing gets dug up and put down at once.
Right. I do think we should, in those sections where it's particularly like the potholes are big and deep, we can also continue to do summer maintenance, hot patch and things like that to make them like passable for the next
there's a clear
couple of years.
Issue, like something that's just out of whack that has to be fixed.
Right.
You go and fix it.
Right.
Any chance for any grants?
So
we have
the only grant we could get for the Brownsville, for the Quechee Road, is the same grant we used to pave the Brownsville Road this past summer, of which it's cyclical. So it's unlikely that we would see that grant opportunity again for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Unless new infrastructure money was made available. But that grant program is available to all towns in our V-Trans district.
we had our turn.
Mm-hmm. Now we have to wait for it to come back.
And seeing as how our state is having a hard time funding things as it is, I'm doubtful that there'll be money floating around from the state. We asked them.
That's a pretty good guess.
So any other suggestions about finding money
I mean, so we continue to,
other than loan?
so again, we don't necessarily have to take out a loan to do some of the low cost, kind of low bar work we're talking about.
You said there's money left in transportation.
There's the highway fund has money in it, and we have incoming money from our FEMA reimbursement.
FEMA and, okay. And before we talked about resurfacing, just going over the top of the tar that's existing in spaces.
Yep.
And that's a X amount per mile.
Yep. Generally speaking,
Just 4 inches or 3 inches? How many inches?
So it's normally like 2 inches. You plane off a couple inches and you put new back down, similar to what they did in the Brownsville Road.
Okay.
The problem with the Quechee Road is that it's in some spots in those sections that are 3s and 4s.
Mm-hmm.
It's too kind of lumpy to do that. You'd have to take off a foot, which the cost goes up exponentially then.
Yeah, and I think Scott during the meeting cautioned against putting money into something you're going to have to tear up.
Yes.
I
That's what he said.
he did. He worried about doing more overlayment. What we can't ignore, though, is some of the sections are going to need some attention, and I don't. Sitting here, I'm not a road person. I don't really know what the best fix is, but
We're hearing that. there are potholes there that need hot patch now,
Yeah.
Which we can do,
which we can do.
which we can do.
So again, for tonight, what I'm hearing is, I don't think we needed action, but I just want to make sure that what's emerging is we're in sync with, is that we would, in the coming year, we would use existing monies to start some of the ditching and drainage work. That we would, at town meeting, talk about this with the general public and just say, here's our strategy for getting started. And that ultimately this is a project of this magnitude, so we need funding from a bond to proceed, and that we would be coming back the next town meeting likely with the request for a bond. Does that capture what we're?
I think that captures what I've heard from this discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. We can reach consensus on that. My viewpoint is always to rip the Band-Aid off and just ask for it now. But if you're more comfortable kind of, doing the socialization of the issue and
I just worry that we don't know exactly what the school budget will be.
Yeah.
It's
I'm with you, but I don't think
6%.
we're never going to know year to year. There's always going to be something that gets in the way.
Jim, I think potentially, I think we could, what we could do, as opposed to if we delayed until 2026 town meeting to talk about a bond, this town meeting, we did the prep work for it.
Sure.
This summer, we could also use the highway fund to do that engineering work ahead of time. So when or if a bond is approved by the voters at town meeting 2026, we're ready to start, potentially ready to start construction.
Yeah.
We're more ready than we would be if we take it out kind of flat-footed.
I'm not sure. Talk to Pathways.
Yep.
Right? Because I don't know, but I think you did your engineering work. You've got right. What you need is money. And then if you got to go up to bid.
Right.
Right.
We don't have construction. I mean, the Pathways provided us the blueprint, but we still need the construction specs. The construction specs. Okay. So we could get those things lined up potentially.
So what happens if we bring it to the town and say that we're going to have a vote on it, not this spring, but the following spring, and then they turn it down? What happens then? And when the road is totally dilapidated, people are going to be continuously driving on it, and it's not going to get any better. It's not going to fix itself. So when that comes to bond, if they vote it down, then what happens?
I don't think we have an answer to that.
Right. Yeah. And you close the road to anything except the local traffic. Right. You divert all trucks and heavy equipment down Route 12.
Democracy in action.
Yep.
In action.
Democracy.
Is an option.
Last Tuesday or Wednesday, late afternoon, 3:34, I was coming back from southern Vermont and it was snowing. That whatever day, that slippery snow sort of started. And I stopped at the market and I pulled out and there's a FedEx tractor trailer that's sitting at the stop sign. So I figured it was going to go north on 5 or north on 12. It went up the Quechee Road.
Yeah.
And right about Jason Collins' place, it couldn't make it up the hill. And eventually it did. But we have a lot of traffic on that road. That's who knows how heavy those vehicles are. Okay, that's an aside. Tom, did you hear enough to be satisfied with our discussion?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let the record show that Tom gave us the thumbs up.
A remote thumbs up. Thank you, Tom. Any other thoughts or questions on this? Just
It's a hard issue.
What does that look like? So who is going to create this presentation that we're going to give
That's what our town manager.
That would be me.
you.
Yes, that would be me.
Okay, all on you.
And you stand by the door in case you have to run out.
About this whole situation.
I do have one question. Is this going to be reflected in the town budget now, this discussion?
No, I would be in favor of using existing town funds to pay for this work.
To pay for engineering and any preemptive ditching.
And any contracted out ditching that we need to do.
I think at some point, though, it would be good to come up with an amount. Because right now it's fairly nebulous as far as what we're talking about. I think as a board, we should agree on how much we want to spend. So.
Well, I think Tom's right. I think what Scott said is you got to come up with a number.
Right.
And they'll
work backwards. Right. They'll work backwards from that number.
Yeah.
So.
We don't have to do it tonight, but at some point we should do it.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, I think it's somewhere between 3 and 4 million.
No. I'm talking about how much of the town funds for the for 2025 of town funds are we going to use for drainage work and the like. We have not come up with a number, and I'm not suggesting we come up with it tonight, but I think we as a board should decide how much that is going to be.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, our cap is like 500,000 because that's all you'll have between FEMA and the Highway Reserve Fund.
Correct. And I would definitely not want to use.
We don't want to use it all.
Right, and we have truck purchases. We have demands on that fund.
Right.
And so I just would, I would just like to see all of us on board and say, okay, here's the number, and with this number, John can go out and talk to Pathways, and we can figure out what we should do. But again, not tonight. We got plenty to do.
Can I put in for a little bit more in the budget for the road?
We can talk about that when we talk about the budget if we want to.
So
Yeah.
we can bring that up and.
Not a lot, but some.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. Okay, so what I am hearing is that we need to come back with an agenda item at a future meeting to talk a little bit about exactly how we're going to use the existing budget or increased budget to tackle those items that we just mentioned.
Yep.
As I was going to say,
Yes, I'm sorry, Coach.
it is the select board's duty to provide proper roads for the town, regardless of what happens down over the hill. We still have a distinct responsibility to maintain proper and safe roads.
Yeah.
And if we have to do something that costs money, we have to do it.
Yeah. Directive statement.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was asking for, like what happens if we bring it to the town and they vote it down? And then we still have a road that needs to get repaired.
Yeah. Right.
So.
I don't know the answer to that. Okay, anything else on the Quechee Road options?
I will only mention that in the chat, there was the suggestion to take it back to gravel.
Which is still pretty expensive.
Which is still very expensive, where all that work would still need to be done in order for it to be maintained.
Interesting.
Okay, going on to the next little business item, the North Hartland School. What we heard from the North Hartland School Committee were some suggestions for moving forward. I guess what I want to do first and foremost is thank again the members of that committee for the time they spent both meeting and being on the site as well as generating the report. So thank you to them all. I think what has emerged is the possibility of subdividing the property, and then using the income from that subdivision to enhance and keep going Career Park. So that's just what my interpretation. John, you have some thoughts?
So I think that's, for me, given that there's no demand for the building as it is now, and the cost to repair the building are significant, I would think that the prudent path would be to subdivide it and look at selling the flat portion of the parcel where the existing building is, keeping the sledding hill, the ball field, the playground, and then just like Phil mentioned, using a portion of that sale to whomever it might be to just like Phil said, to enhance the lower section of Career Park. There was discussion about parking being concerned. I think we can just continue to kind of monitor it to see if when there are large events there, what options exist. There could be signage along the roadside there. That was the one concern that came up in the presentation. That
Is there enough room there to cut in spaces like we have in the front of Damon Hall?
there's a little bit of space. So you'd have to be parallel parking, similar to what they did on Station Road. And again, I think signage can solve that problem.
Okay. Did you get a chance to look into the septic?
The septic is remains a bit of a mystery. We have pictures of it being installed, but no real knowledge of where it is. It's on the upper portion, though.
Okay.
Most likely under the current parking area, based on the pictures.
I'm wondering on the pictures
that we were able to find of the septic being installed.
Okay, so they have, I know a couple of different companies that have cameras they just send.
Yeah.
And then they take a picture, or they have a sensor that goes up so you can tell exactly where everything is.
We use that here to scope the drainage. We have service come in for that.
Would it be on the state website that tracks all the septic plans, or is it too old?
Did not find it. It's not in the lateral files upstairs, and it's not at the state website. So
The school property, out of town.
I think that's.
yeah, no, I went down those avenues as well.
So there should be survey maps on file upstairs.
There potentially are survey maps
Well,
upstairs.
they were when I was town clerk, so I don't know where they would have disappeared to. Because the land was purchased in two different parcels, I think. Because when they added this building we're talking about, I think that's when they added the courier field to that, or at some time they did. But there should be surveys of all the town school property, former school properties, 3 corners, 4 corners in North Hartland.
Okay.
From the time,
So what I'm thinking for tonight is that we make a motion to authorize the town manager to explore subdivision of the property and come back with some suggestions.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
But have a motion tonight that would have the town manager explore options for subdivision and come back to us with.
So I guess the question is, are we the decision makers, or does it have to go to the town?
Well, the decision to sell has to be the town.
Is that by statute or?
Yeah, we can buy it, but we can't sell it as a board.
Okay.
So I think if we tonight just get the ball rolling with the motion to sort of say, let's understand if things can be subdivided and what's involved. And then we would have something concrete to go to the town with.
So we have to do that within weeks.
We'd have to get a surveyor on site pretty quickly, right? Which I think is feasible. It's a relatively straightforward project. It's really accessible.
If you look at the tax maps for that plot, there's a dotted line across the middle of it, which means there are two pieces that make up that parcel. So it was purchased in two different times.
Yeah.
The original piece must have been purchased prior to 1895, because that's when the old school building was built.
So we can do the motion, that's fine. Should we do a dual path? Should we also do the article that allows us to sell?
Yeah, so under new business, when we talk about the articles for town meeting, it feels like we need to do both.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that we have, I don't think we need a motion, we just, do you feel like we need a motion? We can just look into the subdivision thing that is on, it's an operational issue. I'll make a motion that we assign the town manager to look into subdividing the North Hartland school property so that it could be, so that the building could be sold.
Sir, second.
Second.
Thank you, Clyde. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then let's come back around under new business for an article for town meeting. Okay, moving on to new business. Town highway budget. We've been working on that for a number of meetings. I appreciate having the department heads come with their presentations. So we have John and Martin here tonight to basically get us up to date.
Correct. So in your package, you had the budget as proposed, the budget that BJ, Tracy, and John all presented to you. And we've talked about the general funds going into this as well to a certain extent. There are no big changes. The biggest changes are the fact that we moved one staff member out of the highway department into the general fund. So that's why we're seeing a somewhat significant increase in general fund expenditures.
Dropping highway.
But dropping out of the highway fund. Exactly. So right now, the highway fund is about a 1.8% increase, and the general fund is just about 8%.
So what's the combined? I think, because that's the punchline you're going to want to have for the town.
So the combined, to put a fine point on it, is as in front of you, it's $27.80 per $100,000 of assessed value.
Okay, and the percentage increase?
The percentage increase is right around 5%. For each, for each combined. Because highway is like 1.8, town is like 8. So combined, it's about 5%. Again, it's worth noting that inflation, when we started the budget process in the Northeast, was 3.6%. So we're talking about a 1.5% increase above inflation.
And we're increasing our paving in our equipment budget.
Correct.
Or not budget, contributions.
Contributions. Those are the biggest changes.
And we're cutting the planning and ordinance and planning.
We put the ordinance administrator, the ordinance money back in. It's in a different spot.
Okay.
It's unlikely that we're ever going to hire an ordinance administrator. It is in the budget under the administration. Let's go past revenue real quick. It is listed as contractual services under the administration. So whether that is contractual services with a shared service with a neighboring town, contractual services with the Two Rivers Regional Planning Commission, that ordinance, that $20,000 is back in the budget.
Okay.
Did you just remove the ordinance administrator?
It's in there, it exists in there later on in the budget.
But it's zero.
It's zeroed out, correct.
And then I'm sorry to dominate the conversation, what conclusion did you draw on health insurance? You're considering whether you're gonna.
So with some late information, we are providing employees with two options with health insurance. One would be to have the town cover 100% of the MVP Gold premiums, or giving employees the option to move to MVP Platinum, but they pay the 10%. The 10% of the premium, which is what they're currently doing under MVP Gold.
Could you say that one more time?
So right now,
Whiteboard.
Yeah.
right now, all employees are on the MVP Gold plan. We are paying 90% of the premium. The employee is responsible for 10%. The proposal that's included in the budget is we give employees the option. If they stay on MVP Gold, the town covers 100% of the premium. If they go to the MVP Platinum plan, the town only covers 90% of the premium, and the employee is on the hook for the other 10%. As to be expected, the price, if you're on a single plan, it's like a $2 per week price difference. A family plan is like a $20 per week price difference.
Do you have any sense of what the total impact would be?
So it's about this same, $3,000 either way, whether everybody stays on Gold or everybody pays 10% of the Platinum plan. The cost to the town is approximately the same. And I think we're going to see probably a pretty even split among employees based on the feedback we've gotten on who will go with where. And again, this was all being driven to make Hartland more attractive as a place for people to work and stay working.
I have a very small item. It was brought to John and my attention that we left the tree cutting budget at $10,000, which is what it's been for a number of years. And Rob Vandereg expresses concern with Emerald Ash Borer being known to be in town, that we should increase that budget. I can't argue with that. I think John just had a comment when we were just talking about this, just as we started. Should EAB hit, what we don't know if the state again would have any sort of funding for that. I should have thought of this, Ken, really at the very end of the day, but I would have liked to have reached out to my brother-in-law who's gone through this as an arborist in New Jersey, working for towns, to see where the funding has come, because there's been an awful lot of ash trees that have been taken down in that state. But I don't have that information tonight.
But they're generally taken down as a safety issue, not prevent spread.
Correct. Right. As it stands now, my understanding is that Emerald Ash Borer is here in multiple locations throughout Hartland. At this point, we're just waiting for them to.
We already had ash dieback, so these things are, we're already dying.
Yeah. So should we not, in this particular case, modify the budget by some increment is the question.
So for example, the $10,000 got us about those 6 trees on Bowers Road and 1 on the Quechee Road. It's not a lot of tree. $10,000 doesn't go far with tree removal.
Right. Yeah. We have cemeteries to be thinking about as well.
Correct.
With trees there.
Are some of the trees that need to be taken down, like there are multiple dead ones on Jennyville that are like less than a foot through, are those something the road crew can take down?
Yes, if they're relatively accessible and not near power lines, the road crew is comfortable doing that. There are ash trees kind of overhanging the Martinsville covered bridge, though. That's something that we would contract out to have taken down.
And that's a location where
we know where we know.
the EAD is.
Correct.
Yeah. And folks may know when ash is dead, it's extremely brittle and unpredictable, the way it kind of splits and it falls. So it's a little dangerous. That part.
I mean, we could double it, but it's a token increase. You know,
Drop in the bucket.
we can't, you know, there's no way we can predict or necessarily even fund what the scope of the problem could be.
Right. So what's your pleasure? Just leave it be, or?
I would say we have money available to us if and when we need to cut down additional trees. We would just overspend that line in the budget.
Try to come under other places.
Correct. The other thing, on the budget, under assessment, the Windsor County Sheriff is raising their rates after this contract is up. So we are going to have to decide whether we want to reduce our hours or increase the budget to maintain the same level of service moving forward.
How much is the increase?
The increase is $10 an hour to $10 an hour increase.
Times how many hours?
32 hours a week right now is what we're contracted for.
$120 a week.
So 16,600 a year.
So there's a few options. We could increase the policing budget, or we could reduce the secondary contract that we have with the Vermont State Police. We're not really, you know, I think right now we're under contract with the Vermont State Police for 10 hours a week. Sometimes they hit that goal. Oftentimes they don't hit that goal.
What's the total cost for that per hour for Windsor?
Right. Currently, 65.
Yeah. I'm for, I've got to say, I've seen their sheriff's department around. I watch the state police come to training every day to Windsor, and they don't pull anybody over. They make no stops. They're on their way to training every day. And it's like, there's cars speeding by them as I'm driving down the road, and I'm thinking, are they on duty? Are they going to help us? Or are they just more worried about getting the dog training over at Windsor? What's going on with that? So I believe that the sheriff's department has done a pretty decent job in being out there. It's preventative by them being out there.
Yeah.
So personally, I'd rather transfer the funds so that the sheriff's department got their funds. However, that was a pretty quick turnaround to increase the price after they negotiated the price. I'm not totally pleased with that.
We don't have much money to decrease. Right. So we don't want to sever the state police contract completely.
They have to cover us anyway. That's law.
But we only have, so here, what I've seen in the budget proposal is 16,000 and change for state police, 128,000 and change for the sheriff's department. So sheriff's department gets the bulk of the money now. To decrease the state police further is basically settling the contract.
I concur with you, Jim, that the state police we don't know if they'll ever come back for rural policing, or not. But currently they have been unable to do that. I'd rather not remove that budget, but if during the course of the year, if we're not using it, then we could use it for the Windsor County Sheriff.
So I would say, the impact on the sheriff's budget is about $16,000. Mm-hmm. So I would say add $10,000 to the budget and cut the number of hours from 30 to 30.
Yeah.
So say that one more time.
It was a suggestion, not a. Yeah. So say fine. Well, here's your $10. We're cutting 2 hours a week off. and then we throw $10,000 more into the line item.
So right now, we're spending $145,600 in policing services. Combined.
Right.
Contractual police services.
Yeah.
If we try to stick within that number, we could see what it is to maintain some level of service with the Vermont State Police.
You'd have, based on what you proposed for 2026, 2025, not 6, you'd have to go to 0.
With the state police.
Right, because the increase in the sheriff's department is $16,000 and your line item for state is $16,000.
How much, what percentage of do they use? The state police, what percentage do they use of their contract?
It varies pretty dramatically by month. Some months it's 8 hours. We did also decrease the constable budget since we're talking about policing as well. So we did pick up some money there. We could put that back in.
Do you know how much that is?
How much?
Decreased by about $11,000.
Yeah.
And that just went back in.
Right, and that's going back. No, that's essentially going back in if we want to.
Yeah.
I was really truly hoping that we could see the sheriff's department more in more different locations on the dirt roads.
And that's something that we can direct them to do and have that conversation. They're open to those. To that
We're not going to see them for any more hours than what we're seeing. We're giving them a raise.
I would, I'm not sure if you the numbers, this is a slightly different topic. We all were pressing hard to have reporting from the Windsor County Sheriff. And as a board, we haven't seen that. So I'm sitting here saying, yeah, I've seen the Windsor County Sheriff on Route 5 in North Hartland but I've been stopped by the Windsor Sheriff more than the Windsor County Sheriff. But how are they doing? They're doing great. Before we start deciding we're going to decrease hours or increase budget.
So we have reports, and I can get them to you for the first meeting in January.
Yeah, I think though we're gonna nail the budget. I think it would be fair to add $10,000 for that category. Yeah, so we can cushion to kind of cushion the blow. Right? Yep, they're asking for 16 and change. Let's just we got to vote on the budget.
I would agree with that, Jim.
I mean, they took a stab at it. It appears to me that they took a risk by saying that this is how much we can do for you for this much money.
Correct.
And then they got into the position and realized it was a little bit more detailed than they thought. It cost a little bit more money than they thought. I'd like to definitely be able to at least have what we have now for coverage. It isn't enough because there is a lot of roads in our town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we do know from just reading the press that they've expanded services to many other communities. They being the Windsor County Sheriff in the past year. So I have no idea how they're doing with their workforce or anything like that. That's their business. But I agree that there's no short of a need for especially traffic control on that part. So, and trying to keep moving around. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Martin Dole, taxpayer. I agree with Trace. I hate to see us go backwards. I think it has helped. The traffic on Quechee Road seems to have slowed down a tad bit.
Never seen them on Quechee Road.
Like every other institution, as the town of Hartland is finding, the cost of running a business has gone up more and more each year. The cost of vehicles in the sheriff's department, like our trucks that we're buying, I'm sure have gone up. Yes, they're in the door. I think they've done a great job, but the personnel costs also, look at the insurance costs that everybody's looking at. I would hate to see us go backwards. We seem to go backwards quite a bit. I would hope that we can stick with the $32.
I'd like to sit them through 2 hours, and I'm wondering if the state police are giving us those hours, and can we use them? I mean, we're taking a guess at that, how many hours they're actually, we're providing them with the opportunity to take X amount for hours, but they're not taking that full.
They're not, and they were very clear, going into this contract that it was unlikely they were going to be able to meet that obligation.
What are we doing with that extra money that isn't going to them?
Nothing as of today. So we could add the 10. So what we could do is to add the $10,000, and then
It becomes an operational issue.
we reduce the state police contract come July.
Yeah, I wouldn't reduce the contract. Yeah, let's add 10 grand. You'll figure out how to make it come out in the wash. You're looking to make up 6,000.
Right.
I think that's true.
So we want to
Keep the hours.
We want to maintain 32 hours
at least
per week with the Windsor County Sheriff's Office at the increased rate.
But you may want to say, if they keep going up, we might have to reduce hours.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so far we have 2 items, 10K more for the Windsor County Sheriff and the health insurance piece. Trace, you brought up a
Health
question.
insurance piece is already on there.
So in the budget that you looked at, the health insurance is, when this was done, we were under the impression that we all had to be on the same plan. So the budget you're looking at is everybody remaining on MVP Gold at 100%.
Got 100.
That's right. This is platinum at 90%. We're talking a few $1,000s either way here. We're not talking significant money. So we will know people have to tell us so we can get them enrolled by the end of this week. So they need to tell us so we can get them enrolled. They have until the end of December, but given the holidays, it's a short deadline. My suggestion would be, we're tentatively approving the budget tonight. You will see a final budget with the increase in tree cutting, the increase in sheriff's hours, and a final number for insurance on January 6th.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that. Okay, so then let's go back to what else are we adding or subtracting? And Tracy, you were bringing up do we need to add money to the highway fund in order to do some of the additional work that we talked about earlier?
I think that if we're going to try to prolong and put off fixing that road that has to get fixed, we can't afford to get that much money for a loan. And that's what it is. I mean, we can call it whatever you want to call it, but if we're getting a loan, it's going to put us in debt for years and years, and we're paying a lot of interest on it. So if we're trying to promote putting that off, maybe we take a little bit of money and put it in addition to our FEMA money and in addition to any extra money we have left in our transportation budget. So we'll be able to use all three of those to maybe do a little bit more work, especially with the culverts and the drainage on the sides of the road.
So you have a highway fund.
Correct.
You have FEMA money. So roughly $400,000 in the highway fund, $130,000 FEMA money. There's a paving budget that we've increased this year by $30,000.
$40,000 to $300,000.
So you have $300,000 in a paving budget this year. So
you've already done an increase.
So this money, if we pass the budget as is, it becomes an operational issue to figure out how to spend it. If we need to take money out of the highway fund because FEMA and paving doesn't cover it, then we need to have a vote to do that.
Martin,
Also, you're gonna move the 95,000 from the hydro fund to the highway.
To the highway.
That's
Another 95.
Maybe.
right, potentially.
Maybe not. We're going to get there, but maybe that goes to the equipment fund so you can buy trucks.
We could, where that money goes, but there is the $95,000 from the sitting in the highway hydro fund, which we would like to move to an operational account.
Right. But I think that's the money you want for your
not to
purchase trucks.
Okay, so
And you did find where that money came from.
We believe it came from the sale. It was back taxes at the time of the sale of the dam in North Hartland. There is not much in the land records as it relates to it.
No, because they actually purchased private property, not municipal.
It would appear from what we were able to find that that money was back taxes that were due the town.
Okay, Tom, I realize you're coming near the end of the time you need to leave. Do you have any thoughts on the budget at this point?
No, I agree with sort of the direction that you're going. Coming up with a tree cutting plan and how we're going to do it. I think, as I think was mentioned earlier, adding another $5,000 or $10,000 isn't really going to amount to a whole lot. And so if we're needing to spend funds, I would prefer to see it go towards public safety than cutting trees for this year. I think also I want to remind folks that we had discussed prior to entering in the contract with the sheriff's department, we would reach out again to local police departments about seeing whether or not we could do something with regional policing, which I think we should do. So I think we need to get used to the fact that it's expensive to have policing. So I think if we need to spend the money, we should spend the money. Because if we do join a spending. And this also is not a reflection on the services that Windsor County Sheriffs have done. I think they've done a good job. But as we said, it's more a matter of the training and the like that they have. And that's one of the reasons why I still think we should reach out. Regional policing.
Okay, good. Tom, are you comfortable with not adding additional money to the highway fund to start the project as we described earlier on the Quechee Road?
Yeah, I thought we resolved that and it seemed like we're back to that again, that we were going to come back at a later date and decide what the amount of money, but that we were going to use existing funds for that. So,
okay. Well, Trace introduced the idea of maybe increasing the budget, so that's what I want to just make sure we're all comfortable here.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with all that.
Good.
Right. The other option that we could do if we needed to, we could just take out a short-term loan from Mascoma as well if we needed to, if there was concern about taking too much down from the highway fund or something along those lines.
Right.
We can figure that out as down the road.
Yep.
So just to come back to it, was there a desire to add more money to the tree cutting budget, or are we not adding money to the tree cutting budget and seeing what happens? Is it keeping the police services as they are?
Well, adding 10 to policing.
Right.
Right.
Keeping 32 hours a week with the Windsor County Sheriffs.
Right. Right. But increasing the line item for them by 10,000. Your health insurance issue.
Yep.
Right. And I'm not, convicted one way or the other, or whether we increase the tree cutting budget. The reality is, no matter what we do with it, it's not enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And we come around and worry about trees every year, especially around the cemetery. And the cost of an arborist is going up, so that's kind of at the very least, I think we should increase it somewhat. Okay, and whether that's 5 or 10.
Okay.
You can do some.
We will see. We'll see what we can do. Okay. Just keeping in mind that right now we're at that $27.80 per $100,000.
How did we do with our budget for tree cutting last year?
We spent all of it.
Did you overspend?
We did not overspend. Yeah, no, we're basically right about $10,000. It's worth noting that the cemetery in the budget, the cemetery budget also has $7,000 in there for tree cutting. So cemeteries have their own tree cutting budget.
we're going to come back in the first meeting of January, we don't really have an action tonight.
Correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments about the budget at this juncture?
And it seems like we're really close.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to John and Martin for getting us to this point where we are pretty tight and conservative budget.
We did our best.
Okay.
So we'll make those few changes. You'll see it again in January, at the first meeting in January. We'll go from there.
Okay.
What about the insurance piece? Did we make a decision on the insurance piece?
The insurance is we're waiting to see what the employees say. So at this point, those are the options in front of them. 100% of MVP Gold, 90% of MVP Platinum.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say something that's the general public information, like the average Joe.
Yeah.
When you hear platinum, what's the first thing that crosses your mind?
Expensive.
Second, when you hear gold, what do you think? And these are people that live in our town. When they describe an insurance by gold or platinum, the first thing that comes to their mind is, wow, that sounds expensive. They have to have the best of everything in a time when we're all broke and we can't afford to pay our taxes. So which one of the two is more expensive to our taxpayers?
It's essentially a wash, the way we are presenting it to employees.
Okay.
And I mean, I hear what you're saying about
But the reality is, right, the platinum plan premiums are higher than the gold premiums.
Okay.
But if you pick platinum, you have to pay 10% of the premium.
You're making up the costs so that your cost and my cost, if we were doing single person, it would be
Roughly the same.
roughly the same.
Yeah.
Roughly the same.
Okay. Well, then I'm okay with either one then.
And again, this is in an effort to make it a more attractive and sustainable workplace for folks who work here.
I think that's very important.
But I appreciate what you're saying.
I do as well. I mean, the use of those terms.
Because you've heard people say it before, right?
Of course.
They had to have the gold.
Yeah.
That's the most expensive one they could have.
It's good marketing for the insurance company, but not for the tax.
Not the taxpayer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and believe me, we could go down a rabbit hole trying to talk about healthcare.
Let's not.
Okay, moving on to proposed articles for the 2025 town meeting. We have a sheet in our packet that we should probably just start with that and then decide what we're adding or subtracting.
Correct. So it's relatively straightforward. Just going down the articles, both Article 2 and Article 4, so the Hartland Volunteer Fire Department and Mount Scottney Prevention Partnership, those are increases in appropriation requests, which is why they are broken out as separate articles. The fire department is asking for about $30,000 more. That's for equipment, turnout gear, things along those lines. They're currently collecting signatures on a petition.
Why? Why can't we just approve this? Approve the article?
This is the way that it was set up. I don't know why. I think when they ask for an increase, it gets broken out.
The only reason I ask is these guys are so busy already volunteering for the town.
Yes.
Do we need them to collect signatures, or should they just be coming to the board and saying, here's what we need to do, and we say, okay, we put it.
So that's a procedural issue that I think we can address at a future date. I completely agree. And I've had that discussion with the fire chief, but,
Yeah, I was at the library when the library sponsored the Meet the Fire Department, and there was confusion over, it's a volunteer, what's part of the town and what's not part of the town, and so it is
there's got to be some way to just
to streamline
to not have them have to do that.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
And then the Article 4, Montesquieu Prevention Partnership, they're actually merging with what had previously been another appropriation request from Volunteers in Action. So those two are combining. That request is actually going up $100. If you took what previously had been $2,000 from Montesquieu Prevention, $900 from Volunteers in Action, they're merging and asking for $100 more to incrementally increase.
So Volunteers in Action isn't under the big list anymore?
Correct. They are not. So those two are straightforward.
And we expect at town meeting, someone will be there to articulate what Article 4 is and so on.
Correct. We have
Not you.
and we have asked everybody in their town reports submittals to specify specifically what services they're providing to residents in the town of Hartland as well, as opposed to like a generic statement.
So I'm just going to do the opposite of what I just did. Are they collecting signatures to?
They are.
go in? They
Yes.
are. Okay.
Yeah. So it currently exists for anybody who wants to increase their appropriation request. If we wanted to carve out the fire department as something we could take a look at. Article 3, we talked about this a little bit under the budget, is moving the money out of the current highway hydro fund to the highway fund. Sounds like maybe there's a suggestion to move it to a different.
I would suggest, you're buying a truck this year, you don't want another one in the next year or two. Expensive truck.
Expensive trucks.
I would say that money's better spent on the equipment fund.
Equipment fund or the highway equipment fund.
I think the way it's written, at least the way it's in the town report, it says
Okay.
equipment fund, but yes,
Okay.
it's for the highway equipment.
Yep. I think that's a good idea.
Okay. The next one is Article 7. This is something that we have to do every 5 years for Esquibog. It should have been done last year. We were given a kind of 1-year pass by the state. This is just to exempt that property from taxes. We've done this previously. This is just that general housekeeping article that is necessary. Are there any questions on that one?
No, I have two general fund questions, not general funds, but fund questions.
Yes.
So we have Hedwig
Women's Fund.
with $51.
Yes.
And we have Library Memorial with $70. And
Tracy is working on spending those down.
both
Both of them.
Okay. That works.
Miss Weiner was my neighbor, and then really supported our library.
There could potentially be an article based on the North Heartland School conversation from earlier, if we wanted to add an article regarding the North Heartland School, if I heard you correctly.
You should draft the article.
Correct.
Right, and then we'll have to decide if it stays or goes.
You're right.
Yeah.
We can draft it and then have it ready based on feedback that we get from a surveyor, if we can, get that moving in the next month.
Okay.
I mean, I think,
Go ahead.
we should probably propose the article. If we decide that we can't sell it, we're not required to sell it, right? We just want permission to sell it. So the article should just probably be drafted and we'll approve it next meeting.
Yeah, okay. That's a good point.
We would need to potentially specify where that money from the sale would go to.
Yeah, I think there was some language proposed where we said, for park improvements and
Right.
other
Yeah.
town improvement projects.
Yeah. Clyde, go ahead.
Well, I figured out, it say, shall the town, voters of the town of Hartland authorize the select board to sell the remaining North Hartland School building along with sufficient land for a building lot. Such monies from the sale shall be used for the upkeep and improvements of the Helen Courier Park.
All of it?
Well, if we
We
want
could
to
say,
construct another building.
you could say
Do
that.
you want to construct another building?
Well, that's what the committee suggested, that they have
Shade?
some sort of a shelter up there,
Right.
because there's no shade.
Sure. So I think that would be the priority, but you could say for that park and other town parks as needed.
To keep it
So
in,
keep it
in the spirit of using it for.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we will get that drafted and set.
Other articles at this juncture?
Not at this juncture, aside from that, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. And moving on to the town manager update.
That is. Have all these pieces of paper. So just a few things. We did get a quote for a generator. We're still kind of trying to track down grant funding for that, for a generator at Damon Hall, because this is our identified emergency operations shelter. The generator grant came in at basically $12,500. So significantly less than the one at the highway garage and fire department, but this is just to run the lights downstairs, basically essentially run the downstairs at Damon Hall and the water. Recognizing that the upstairs would be kind of not in use at that point.
Would that include the heat
It
system?
would include the heat. Yep, the heat, the well pump, things like that. So there was, we were notified by our IT consultant.
So I don't want to like split hairs.
Yep.
Do you need it to run the front offices upstairs? I know the hall, you're not gonna, well, actually, no, would you, if you're an emergency shelter in operations center?
It's
would
not-
you need the whole thing?
Currently, this is not a shelter.
Okay.
Currently, this is not identified as a shelter. So it's just emergency operations.
So the school's does not any longer use this as a shelter?
The David Hall is not identified as a shelter in town, the church is.
But I think we are an evacuation spot for the school.
We are a communications coordination spot.
Right. So our needs here are pretty limited in terms of being able to, flush the toilet and have the lights on. That's the critical component here at the present moment.
That sounds better.
What's the difference though, in terms of cost to just do the whole building?
So I suspect it would not be insignificant based on the wiring. It's two separate boxes by the back door there. The electrician who came was a little confused by why it was set up that way. So as it is now, there's space in one box to put the appropriate size equipment. If we wanted to do the whole building, it would take reconfiguring both of those boxes. The machine itself is probably not that much more expensive. We were notified by our IT consultant that Microsoft is going to stop supporting Windows 10, which means we are going to have to overspend this coming year on machine replacements. We currently budget to do about 4 per year. They're saying we need to replace a minimum of 9.
Because they don't have the capacity for Windows 11?
Because our machine, correct.
So just to translate what Jim was saying, they cannot be upgraded to this operating system, Microsoft 10.
Correct. I'm meeting with them later this week to talk about to see if there's any options available. Are there short-term patches so we can help to offset the cost so it's not such a big hit at one time? Because we don't, much like trucks, we don't want to have 9 computers that are all on the same schedule.
I think, you're right. The other question I want to ask is, how often are you replacing these things? What's the cost? Is it cheaper to lease and just get a new one every 3 years?
Right.
Especially if the software's involved in that part.
Yeah.
Are there other down the line things with various software packages? Are we using anything that we need that once we move to Microsoft 10 isn't going to run and we're going to get?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No. Okay. So you'll notice some line striping was done at the beginning of November. it was not necessarily done correctly or in the right locations. So they are coming back in April to finish the line striping because they cannot do it now. It's too cold.
We're talking the Quechee Road?
No, we're talking there's supposed to be stop bars at the end of hours, potentially a fog line on Clay Hill, things along those lines. They were not able to find the highway garage, so they made some best guesses and guessed incorrectly.
Can you maybe do a drive-by of County Road because there's no stop bar and no stop sign until actually cross Brownsville Road?
Yeah, there was a list of places identified. This is all being paid for under a Homeland Security Improvement Grant. So we're trying to ensure that we can spend all of that grant on the right work at the right locations.
You have a faded stop sign like, 50 feet beyond where you need to stop.
How do you, Homeland Security?
That was where the grant came from.
It came with free drones.
How do you make that connection? That's awesome.
Or if you come off the county road, the stop sign's ahead of you, you know you gotta stop before you get to Brownsville.
We don't get stopped.
Generally, the stop sign is back 75 feet from where the road meets the other road. And would be wiser if it was on the opposite side of Brownsville.
Oh, yeah.
Since we're talking about highway, after the first couple snow ice events, we've had some minor truck maintenance issues, but nothing of note. So we're making it all work still. The biggest issue I think might be that they put a window down in a rainstorm and it wouldn't go back up. So it was a little chilly in one truck for a while, but I believe that has since been resolved. And that is it, actually.
John, will you talk a little bit about what might happen from maybe a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and ourselves with the folks installing the tower?
So the proposed...
And do we know about the exact dates of that?
No.
Whether we missed it or not?
We have not missed anything. There's been a lot of chatter about the proposed tower. As of now, I am coordinating with their local representative who lives down in southern New Hampshire to schedule a meeting, to have them come in late January, early February to either a select board meeting or a special meeting where we can invite residents of the town to have them present the proposal and answer questions as it relates to it.
Why don't we have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and the Select Board?
Would you like to have it at a select board meeting or as a separate meeting?
I would think
If the select board is there, it has to be a select board meeting.
Okay.
So
So
that warned as a select.
Well, we could warn it as a Select Board meeting, but it doesn't have to be Monday at 5:30.
Correct. I think it would be better to do it not at a regularly scheduled meeting.
Yeah.
Given the interests, it seems like it could be a full house.
Okay. Right.
So,
No, that'd be very good. And you requested for the Planning Commission that copies of documents that they sent to, is it ITW or whatever?
correct. There was an email that said they had done, that the Planning Commission had preemptively sent a letter. I was unaware that letter had been sent. I've not seen that letter. So just trying to track down what exists out there, what official correspondence has been sent from the town of Hartland.
They sent a letter without you seeing it?
That's what I'm trying to track down. That's the information that I don't know.
That's what's implied in the minutes.
There might be an administrative issue there, but if the planning commission is sending official correspondence that needs to be from the planning commission email address on the town server.
Correct.
So
All
that might just be
The
information that needs to be
correspondence
shared.
had everyone on there, had John's name on there from that. There's also another 250 piece going on right now with the climbing gym moving to, you were notified, I was notified that the Arbor States is
Oh, yes.
to sort of convert the building out there.
Yes.
Which I think is perfectly
Right.
fine.
Sorry. You lost me at climbing gym because the old climbing gym on the preview.
Yeah, the old climbing gym.
The old climbing gym at the end of Route 12 there. But again, yeah, nothing, no significant changes there.
It's already a commercial property.
It is already a commercial property.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's all I have.
Okay, so future agenda items, we'll be having the budget discussion the next time, finalizing the articles that may pop up between now and then. And then we have those items, 3 corners, intersection lights, Burkeville Road, cemetery committee, and capital plan. So we have lots of things to keep us busy.
Right. Exactly.
Any correspondence at this point?
So just 2 pieces of correspondence, one of which we've already discussed, the letter, an email from Rob Andrigg to Phil and myself, talking about Emerald Ash Borer and budget. And then just a letter from the town of Woodstock saying that our fees for ambulance fees will remain the same next year. So that is it for correspondence.
Okay. And we do have an executive session.
And this is related to personnel issues.
Personnel issues.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I don't think there'll be an action.
Maybe.
I think there might be an action.
Okay.
I would anticipate there being an action.
Okay. So sorry, guys, you gotta stay.
All right, then I'll make a motion to enter executive session under 1 VSA 313A3 for employee personnel evaluation.
And I'll second it. Keep that.